From the very dawn of humankind, as clusters of people spread across the continents, they left specific markings in their wake. Hand imprints found in caves are a standard of world rock art. However, scientists have yet to figure out their true meaning. Our team learned that this is still practiced in a remote area of Papua New Guinea. So we went there in search of an answer. What we found was so much more. This is the account of our expedition. I am Edmundo Edwards. I'm an archaeologist who has been living on Rapa Nui for over 47 years, and I'm a member of the Explorers Club. I specialize in Polynesian and Melanesian cultures, and in my studies I've had the chance to travel to many different Pacific islands. The remote jungles of Papua in eastern New Guinea, north of Australia, stand out as one of the most unexplored places on Earth, where hunter-gatherers, Neolithic cultures still exist. We started our journey on Rapa Nui, flying first to Tahiti, then Australia, and finally Port Moresby, the capital of Papua New Guinea. The island of New Guinea is split into halves. The western part belongs to Indonesia, while the eastern half is independent. New Guinea is the second largest island in the world after Greenland. It is roughly 1,740 miles long by 422 miles in its widest part. Population is about 6.5 million inhabitants belonging to several different cultural groups, speaking over 1,000 different languages. The island was populated about 50,000 years ago, and to this day great parts of it are still unexplored and remain a mystery to scientists. We are on a journey to the unknown, to a place where there still are people who have never seen foreigners, where the locals roam virgin forest on their way to their sacred sites, where they perform ceremonies that have never been seen by outsiders. Our team consists of 8 members of different nationalities and professions. There's archaeologists, geologists, botanists, an architect who is also a painter, and several of our team members are also climbers who will help us climb up the steep cliffs where the caves and paintings are located. 6 of us are from Rapa Nui. Nancy Sullivan joins us in Papua with 10 Papuan anthropology students who will be our interpreters and share their knowledge with us. Nancy Sullivan, together with the students and collaborators, has been exploring this area for over 15 years, visiting the different cultural groups that live spread out by seasonal streams on the foothills of the great mountain ridge. However, she needed our collaboration to thoroughly study, register, and date the paintings in the caves. Organizing an expedition such as this one is not only a lot of work, but also very expensive. Fortunately, we found a patron, Antonio Cruz from the Canary Islands, who was willing to cover the cost of our expedition and joined us in our adventure. Our expedition finally reaches the settlement of AWIM after traveling 2 days by river. AWIM will be our base camp. Its settlers will eventually become our friends and guardians, leading us to the cave paintings in the months to come, paintings that have never been shown to outsiders. Papua New Guinea is one of the earliest places inhabited by man. 120,000 years ago, modern man immigrated from the Cape of Africa towards Europe and Asia, arriving to India about 75,000 years ago. Sahr, the name of the landmass that encompassed Australia and New Guinea, was settled some 60,000 years ago. Australian Aborigines and Papuans are the descendants of the first people to practice agriculture in irrigated fields about 10,000 years ago in plateaus located further inland. The Lapita, the ancestors of the Polynesians coming from Taiwan, settled in the island archipelagos north of New Guinea. The Lapita would go on exploring and settling islands all across the Pacific, eventually reaching the coast of southern Chile and South America. Sugarcane, breadfruit, yams, taro root, and bananas, all native to Papua New Guinea, would spread throughout the Pacific. The people of AWIM are pretty special. Their present settlement is located before a great mountain where, according to AWIM traditions, the gods of creation and ancestral spirits of nature gave the AWIM life. This group established themselves there in 1960. Before then, they were hunter-gatherers who lived a nomadic lifestyle in the nearby jungle. They settled by the shores of a stream in order to socialize and keep contact with other people who lived near the stream to widen their horizons. However, this change in lifestyle was not easy. It involved several confrontations and a war with other tribes starting in 1960. Outside contact with these people was almost non-existent prior to World War II. Today there are approximately 130 inhabitants in AWIM. 65% of them are children. They are a peaceful people, and they seem to be somewhat anxious and touched by the prospect of these outsiders coming to live amongst them for the first time. Work is clearly separated by gender. The woman's work involves cooking, washing sago flour, cultivating the small gardens with the help of her children, collecting firewood, trap fishing, sewing sago leaves to make thatch, and cleaning around the house. They also weave natural fibers into sacks that are used to transport the harvest and bags to store personal objects. Men carry out all the tasks that require more physical strength. They build houses and large canoes. They clear the land for planting and hunt in the jungle. The boys to become men must participate in rites of initiation. Nowadays, skin scarification is the only rite required for them as an initiation into manhood. White paint is used as a sign of mourning after the death of a loved one. The men gather in the men's house, a special building where they carry out and learn their sacred traditions, keep the images of their guardian spirits and their sacred tree bark paintings, which depict the origins of each clan, their totems, the boundaries of their territory, lakes, forests, and streams. These sacred designs are passed on from one generation to the next. By the river we meet Sevi, who bosses his daughter. However, not all is as it seems, since this father-child relationship is not as important as the uncle-nephew link. The AWIM men are mentors of the male sons of his sister, which fosters a very strong emotional bond between the two. On our expedition, we traveled with Jaime and Sebastian, both Rapa Nui. Jaime is Sebastian's uncle. They are very close and are on very friendly terms with each other. Once the AWIM learn about this relationship, it is accepted and observed in a special way. The oldest handprints in the world were made 30,000 years ago. They are found in Altamira and Chauvet in Europe as well as in Australia and Indonesia. Hand imprints have also been found in Patagonia, but those are more recent, dating to 12,000 years ago. The paintings we see are mostly hand imprints made with colored earth pigments mixed with human blood. Why did our ancestors, like the modern-day Papuans, make these marks? What do they represent? We gear up to start our exploration of the area and climb up to the caves with paintings. Since they are very far away from AWIM, we are forced to set up camps and sleep in different settlements along the way. Most of the people who occupy this area tell us that they come from clans that were hunter-gatherers, the same as the people of AWIM. Up until recently, they used the caves up on the cliffs for their rites of initiation ceremonies. This is where the young AWIM youths gathered for their rites of initiation ceremonies. Nancy explains to us how the ceremony was performed in 1980.
And these people who lived in the mountains around here until independence lived in the caves. They didn't actually have terra firma. They lived in the caves, and they at independence had to move down to the headlands of the Sepik. They're one of the tributary of the Sepik now, but traditionally they're cave people up here, and they use this particular cave, Pundambo, as a spirit house. But at one point, people when boys were initiated, they would cut the tip of their penis, spray blood on it, and put positive marks on it. But what you see here are the hand marks of boys spitting dirt clay over their hands, men spitting clay, also showing you shell money, important shell money that was traded in from the Papuan coast all the way up through the mountains here. We're really not sure how old these hand marks are. Some of them are very recent. The last time they were initiating boys here was in the 70s. So they come up to very recently, and it's really continuous up until now, different from Lascaux or any other old caves, where we certainly can date its habitation till at what point in prehistory that people stopped living here. Here, it was virtually yesterday that people stopped living here, and that's what's interesting about these caves.
Houses are built communally. They do not use nails. Everything is tied or fit together. All of the houses by the sides of the streams and rivers are built over stilts, since the waterways often flood several feet during the rainy season, turning the houses into little isles. And they make the most out of the jungle resources. The tree trunks are used as beams, the bark of the sago palm for the flooring, and the leaves for the thatching. For the inauguration, the owner of the house has hunted a wild pig in the jungle that will be shared by all. The powdery starch obtained from the use of cultivated or wild sago palms is the main staple for the people of AWIM and the entire Kariwari region. It is the equivalent of bread for Westerners or rice for Asians. This palm takes 20 to 30 years to reach its optimal height, measuring up to 34 feet in height. The preparation of this foodstuff is a communal affair. The men are in charge of cutting it as well as clearing the trunk and pruning all branches and placing it in an appropriate place to remove the bark. The women do all the rest of the work. They grind the soft pulp in water where the starch dissolves. It is then placed in the bottom of the hull of a canoe where the excess water is removed and it is left to dry. The starch turns into a fine flour which is used to prepare a somewhat plain yet nutritious tortilla, which contains a significant amount of protein. The children accompany their adults in all these chores as part of their education. They will be the ones to do it in the future. They also gather a variety of bush vegetables, including ferns, some edible leaves, breadfruit and berries. Bananas and sweet potatoes cultivated in small family gardens complement their diet. The betel nut grows right outside the houses of AWIM. This nut is the CPIC's most valued fruit by both men and women. The betel nut is chewed together with vine leaves and some active lime that activates the nut's alkaloids, producing psychoactive effects. In small doses, it produces euphoria, increases the energy flow, and inhibits hunger. The people of AWIM can eat up to 10-15 nuts a day, but that's not all they eat. Although it's true that the people of AWIM today are not known for their hunting skills, they are formidable gatherers. One good way of securing proteins is by eating larvae and insects that grow in the jungle. The people of AWIM are Catholic. Vincent, the town catechist, donning his Sunday best, gets ready to start service. Vincent is visibly amused by our camera. Since there are no church bells, Vincent replaces them with drums to summon the villagers to Mass. When the people of AWIM descended from the mountains and settled by the river shore, a Catholic missionary converted them to Catholicism and later sent Vincent to perform all religious duties.
You think I'm going to blow me to ocean? All the time you go to walk on the slow ground. And me free you know me la touching. And through the so quarter look motion. This is something about him maybe like you know me. Oh my God. This is something about him maybe like you know me. Also the quarter walk.
Fidelis, AWIM's witch doctor, attends the Mass. He is still feared and respected. He is the oldest man in AWIM. He is 50 years old and has outlived 3 wives.
Give him 3 hands like you now, you come sit down. 1, 2, 3. Okay, morning, God bless.
We are headed to the cave of Kamambrum. The locals say that this sacred place is still inhabited by the gods of nature. 2 creator spirits, a male and a female flute, started playing and thus created humans. Since the instruments produced different melodies, people were born speaking different languages, and that explains why there is such a great variety of languages in the Sepik. Today there are over 300 languages spoken in the area, and sometimes neighboring settlements speak totally different languages. In order to date the paintings of Kamambrum, we brought with us the specialist Dr. Bassam Galeb, director of the Center of Geochemical Studies of Canada, McGill University. Dr. Galeb is considered one of the world's foremost experts in his field, and he has dated very important paintings, including some in Altamira, Chauvet, and many others in Europe, Australia, Africa, and Asia. As soon as weather allowed us, we started our journey to the caves of Kamambrum. They warned us that it would not be easy to get there.
Very good.
Nice. Good work.
Thank you. Let's go, huh?
Yes, sir.
Even though it isn't so far away, the jungle vegetation is so dense, it's taken us 6 hours to get to the base camp. Nevertheless, the landscape is stunning and endlessly gratifying. There are large butterflies, exotic insects and animals, and a large virgin forest.
Yeah. And money waiting.
Everywhere we pass is guarded by spirits or deities. Fidelis, the witch doctor, performs different rites to ensure that these spirits see us as their friends and don't inflict us any harm.
Essentially, we will try to sample the white faces, which is calcium carbonate secondary precipitate, covering the marine environment, which is here in brown.
Each cliff face is meticulously mapped and its painting systematically photographed. We sample each of the pigments. The Explorers Club provides flags for expedition it deems worthy enough to merit such an honor. These have included teams exploring our moon as well as our deepest ocean. The Explorers Club was gracious enough to grant us with a flag, considering our project particularly worthy as a scientific expedition to a previously unexplored area.
Because if not, it would be very hard.
Exactly.
It would be crystallized.
Exactly. With time, it would be crystallized. So it's.
Bassam explains regarding the cave painting's dates.
This is good pieces. If you see here, this is exactly the same fishes we sampled there, which is calcium carbonate secondary precipitation. And if you can see here on this painting, the small calcite crystal, they were already painted. So it means that the painting is more recent than the calcium carbonate precipitation, which is already very recent. So this gave us an idea that the painting is by far more recent than, to my opinion, it's years, not more than that. That's it.
Nevertheless, these symbols still have a meaning for the present natives who visit these places. Therefore, they still serve the social function they were made for, to confirm the ideas and beliefs of their long-gone creators, and to make them feel that through these symbols that unite the past with the present, their social system is still consistent, coherent and logical, therefore timeless. One day we found the villagers preparing to go up the mountain. They were going to build a large canoe way up in the forest where the large trees grow. Jaime and Sebastian were invited to participate in this task. The local people learn to use hatchets and machetes since they are very young, tools essential for their survival in jungle areas such as those found in the Karavari region. They must smooth down the hull of the canoe in order to make it lighter and easier to transport. Fidelis blesses the canoe, and they share some betel nuts to give the volunteers more strength and stamina. Everybody collaborates to bring the canoe down to the shore. This day's labor was arduous, yet the canoe was moved not more than 26 feet. The Karawari River floods this area in the rainy season when it can grow up to 30 feet. This allows the locals to navigate upriver and visit more remote settlements. The waterways are the means by which people circulate and establish and reinforce their ties with other communities, be it for trade, marriage, friendship, or an alliance. The Sepik River is the island's major waterway. It originates in the seemingly endless forests of the Central Ridge and is the heart of one of the greatest, least disturbed fluvial reserves in the Asia-Pacific region. The Karawari is one of the main rivers in the area, encompassing one of the places with the most species diversity on the planet. The Karawari eventually mixes with the Arafundi River, which connects the people of AWIM with numerous other villages and settlements. This is one of the most remote places on Earth. The closest supply store is 372 miles downriver, and the nearest doctor is 3 days away, crossing the mountain by foot. For people in the Kariwari area, finding a wife involves a fair amount of trading. We meet Martine, who introduces us to his wife. She is from another settlement and speaks a different language. Papua New Guinea official language is Tok-Pising, an English-based Creole without which this couple could not communicate.
What name do you ken?
Martin Meliap. Ako mi stable kiri papa lokati mi lang kut pakai kaya mi painim gele mabus mi lokati mi mi pipla lang mi ako mi kama kisi mak belum papa ken. Life mi loki morsim papa lokati mi ako mi kokut or something. Okay, now mi kirap ken okay mi pipla ken that now mi one kind awesome people papa custom all is tablo ken. Okay, mi pialing ken okay, mi lokati mol bikin ni kirap ken mi lokati mol ken.
We took advantage of the river's overflow to explore neighboring sites that also have cave paintings. We arrived to the settlement of Chimbut, and we are intrigued by the design and construction of their homes. We see hand imprints on the pillars and ask what they mean, but nobody knows or wants to explain. Perhaps they were meant to record the journey of someone who passed by here many years ago. We must find the people who still live in the forest and use the cliffside caves for their ceremonies. We will advance to even more remote areas, further into the forest. Here we are with our friends Paul and Michael Mena, that are the owners of this cave. Michael is an inheritor of this incredible place where you have these wood carvings that probably are many hundred years old. And he's going to tell us now about the cave and this cultural heritage that he has.
Like what Mike is saying, that this cave was used as a shelter in the ancient times or in traditional times. They were using this as shelter. At the same time, this cave was used as a place where they could spy on their enemies. And down there,
when they came up the river,
they could spy on them, and they can send signals to the warriors that the enemies is coming, and they go and attack them and all that. And in its carving, you see here that it tells a different story of their travel, their existence in this area here.
When we arrive to the settlement of Inai, we find a woman and her son working away at the bark of a tree they call cinnamon, but it's spicy hot and is exported to Indonesia, where it is a popular condiment. This is the first hint of commerce we see in the area, which means that the riches of the local forest and the pieces of gold that flow down river are already being steadily exploited. Here we are in the village of Inai, a very beautiful village in the Kariwari. And when the people built this village in 1989, they then started clearing here, and they discovered this stone figure that also has another small figure, that is this one here, that is very strange because normally you don't find many stone figures in this area. And this one has a face here, that is a principal face, and then it has another little face up here. And I don't know the meaning, and I've never seen any figures like that in this area. It reminds me of stone figures that I've seen in Vanuatu. In Vanuatu they have a lot of figures that look like this, but here I had never seen anything like that. This has a double figure, some other things here, and that's painted. That is not, it's not a stencil, that's painted. This cave would be interesting to excavate this cave because it has quite a large deposit and probably was occupied for a long time. We would just have to eliminate the bees first. Further inland from Imboim, we run into a cave full of skulls. When a renowned hunter dies, his remains are left in the forest to disintegrate. Later they take his skull and his hunter's pack, together with his weapons and arrows, so that an important community member can paint his skull red, the color of life and sacredness in many societies. This cave is the resting place of these illustrious ancestors. In other cases, the skulls belong to those who fell victims to cannibalism. We returned to our base camp after 70 days. On our way back, we ran into a group of people who resolutely live in these forests. They introduced themselves as the Meakambut. They are perhaps one of the last hunter-gatherers people left in the area. They have never before encountered foreigners until they meet us. They have heard of us and know we shall be leaving soon. A few of them were anxious enough to meet us that they wandered down to bid us farewell. The AWIM have prepared a surprise for Jaime and Sebastian, our two Rapa Nui islanders, who are also recognized as belonging to one of the Pacific cultures. They are both invited to an extraordinary initiation ceremony to welcome them as part of the tribe. This ceremony is a great honor for us as outsiders and as Rapa Nui. Outside of the house, the new candidates who wish to enter the tribe gather around. There is great excitement and merriment in the settlement, not only because of the ceremony, but also because the Meakambut have accepted us and are visiting as they wish to participate in the ceremony as well. Uncles and nephews push their way into being accepted, making room for themselves in the clan. Fidelis welcomes the new members.
No, no, putih yang no. It was starting. Now, winning game.
Kami.
Okay.
They play their flutes and the magic sound of the gods of creation travel in the wind. The ceremony begins. The last cave dwellers, the Meakambut, tell us that these initiation ceremonies are still performed today and that although they don't know their origin, they are sure it has been so since the beginning of time. Despite our being the first outsiders they've ever seen, we soon establish a beautiful friendship. We only hope that they are able to continue living their free lifestyle and that when the time comes to integrate into the modern world, they may do so in a gradual and peaceful way, where their culture and traditions are respected. This is why we have not revealed the places they inhabit, in order to protect their integrity and their way of life. We still don't know when the local people started making these hands imprints, and we ask ourselves if their function and meaning has changed over time. Nancy's team has since then found 2 more groups of people who had previously had no contact with foreigners and who still use the caves for their initiation ceremonies. Nevertheless, the question as to when they first started using these caves and painting them remains a mystery. Was it 30,000 years ago, like those with similar paintings found in Europe and Australia? Did they have the same meaning for modern-day inhabitants as they did for Paleolithic people? Are similar paintings found elsewhere in the world also part of initiation ceremonies like the ones in Papua? We don't know the answers except for the fact that the hands are the same and that they're both made with human blood. Our dream is to return.
Kuku bara seeds on the